Hi, my name is Nicole, and I teach AP Microeconomics, Macroeconomics, and Statistics. I am currently majoring in Operations Research and Information Engineering and minoring in Business at Cornell University. I've had about 4 years of experience teaching, which ranges from more service-oriented teaching at elementary and middle schools and individualized one-on-one tutoring at high schools. Teaching has always been one of my passions because I love seeing my students become more interested in what they learn. Economics and statistics are two subjects that are both related to what I study and topics that I enjoy teaching because of its relevance to the real world. So the concept of economics that I'll be introducing is the production possibility frontier and the concept of opportunity cost. So the production possibility frontier, known as PPF, shows the maximum quantity of one good that you can produce given the quantity of the other good produced. So, for example, let's say that there are only two goods produced in the world, cars and apples. In this hypothetical situation, if the US dedicated all its resources to producing cars, it could produce a maximum of 30 cars. While if it decides to dedicate all its resources to produce apples, then it could produce a maximum of 40 apples. So this graph shows an example of a PPF. You can also see from this graph that as you produce more of one good, you would have to sacrifice part of the production of the other good, which is why you have a downward sloping curve. Essentially, this trade-off is called opportunity cost, which is what you need to give up in order to get something else. So a side example of this is if you're faced with the decision to either go to college or get a job. So let's say you decide to go to college. Well, in that case, your opportunity cost would be, for example, the monetary cost, because you're foregoing the income that you could have made if you took the job instead. While on the flip side, if you decide to take the job, then your opportunity cost would not only be the education that you're not getting, but also the extra income that you could have earned in the future with a higher degree of education. So going back to the PPF example, if the US started off by producing 30 cars, but wanted to start producing apples, then you would have to sacrifice some of those resources in order to produce more apples. What you can also observe from the curve is that this line marks off the US's feasible production, where the country would be able to produce the quantities that are shown either inside or on the curve. So let's look at some specific points on the same graph. So over here you can see that it's the same graph except just with some extra points. So points on the line shows the maximum quantity of cars that can be produced given a certain number of apples that are produced, or vice versa. So if the US chooses to produce 16 apples, then it can produce a maximum of 18 cars, which is shown by point A. Now let's say if it decides that it wants to produce more apples, say going from 16 to 28 apples, then it would have to decrease the quantity of cars that it produces. So from 18 to 9 cars, which is shown by the shift from point A to point B. And the same concept can be applied to all the points on this line, where the country would be utilizing all its resources efficiently. So we can also look at points that are inside the curve, such as the one in point C. And we know that point C marks a feasible point of production because if the country can produce a maximum of 18 cars and 16 apples, then it can certainly produce less cars and less apples. So for example, 9 cars and 16 apples, because it can just decrease its production, but it just wouldn't be using all its resources efficiently. And finally, we can examine points outside the curve, such as the one at point D. These points are not feasible points of production because the US can produce 30 cars and no apples, or it can produce 40 apples and no cars, but it can't produce both. So understanding the production possibility frontier, even in its simplified state of only two goods, can help us better understand more complex topics of economics, including comparative advantage and gains from trade. Thanks for watching and hope to see you soon.